All right, it is time now for our interview segment. As I had mentioned earlier, I am joined by William Kamore, who is the content manager at LG, and we are going to be discussing matters around food waste reduction. Good afternoon, Mr. Kamore, and thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much.
All right, yes. So I don't know if you've seen, even before we delve into the interview, I don't know if you've seen the video that has been taking rounds on social media. This lady went to a supermarket and she bought a packet of unga, and it was so expensive that she was hysterical. So that is the current situation that we are at in this country.
Yes.
The food prices are so high.
Exactly.
So my first question would be, what is the role of food preservation?
Okay, so thank you for having me. So what I can say, the role of food preservation means that, you see, if you're able to preserve your food for longer, and not only for longer, and also stay fresher for longer, it means that you will be able to reduce your food wastage and also save on your money. Because if you can have, let's say, the food you prepared last you for even close to 5 days or 7 days, it means also the same, that you're able to save the money you had on others and also help to reduce the food wastage.
So what would be our food preservation options for us living here in the urban areas and also for people in the rural areas?
Okay, especially for rural areas. What I want to say is, you see, when it comes to food, actually, in food preservation, and from what we learned in our school days is that if you can remember the basic needs, which were food, shelter, and clothing. So if you are not looking for shelter or clothing, you're looking for food. And so one way of preserving food that we all know is, even if you go through traditional methods, that's like smoking or even drying foods, and also into modern areas, let's talk about freezing, and also talk about wrapping or heating. Like, there are various methods that people can put into to help reduce your food wastage and also help preserve your food longer. So there are various options also depending on a rural setting or an urban setting, and various factors that one has to consider in this case.
So this is something I saw that I want to read for you so that you understand where the question is coming from. It says 10% of the world's perishable foods are the ones that are preserved. Okay, so that means 90% of the world's perishable foods, they become they become waste.
Yes,
we throw that away.
Exactly.
We throw that away. So that means there's a 90% of food that can be preserved so that we don't have some of these issues. It might not be a solution, a big solution, but it can help if the 90% of that food is preserved. So now my question would be, how many Kenyan households presently are using some of these preservation methods?
Hello. What I can say is, especially when it comes to, when we talk about freezing or refrigerators, we want to talk, LG is currently conducting a survey on how to help consumers get to understand the benefits of food preservation and also get to know the needs of someone who has a refrigerator. So what we found out is that when you talk about, like, now the modern way of preserving food, which is by use of refrigerators, from the survey so far, we have about 74% of Kenyans do own refrigerators. And then from the other, but still from that 74%, again, like you mentioned, the 90% of food that can be preserved is still being thrown away. So we need to educate about even the people already with the food preservation methods, how best to go about it to help your food last for longer.
That is what I was going to ask you next. It's not uncommon to find people who have food in the fridge, but they've thrown it away afterwards.
Yes.
So why, or how can we change that?
I'm sure either one of us, you've thrown food recently from the refrigerator.
Definitely.
Yes. So what I can say is, one is first getting to understand, like, the refrigerator you have, like, what options or what features will help you in preserving your foods fresher for longer. And that comes like into the compartments that are there available, and also the features to help you preserve your food fresher for longer. So if we educate the masses on, if yes, I do have a refrigerator, but what other step can I go to help preserve my food fresher for longer? And so one, let me just give some few tips for the users. So like one, if you do have a refrigerator, so one is always wash your foods, because like you mentioned, the perishable foods, because that's what most people throw away, and that is like your tomatoes, and exactly the cost of tomatoes is higher, your vegetables and stuff. So first you need to wash them, and then there's also compartments that help you in preserving your vegetables fresher for longer. So if you're to put it in the vegetable drawer, it's actually there, and not place it on the door. Because again, if you place it on the door, it will be, how can I say, it will not be fresher for longer, and you find you're throwing your vegetables away after like 3 or 5 days. But if you actually store them in a vegetable box, and LG refrigerators are known to have such features like for door cooling and also the vegetable box to help your vegetables even stay even up to 7 days fresher for longer. So that means you will have less perishable foods to throw away.
Okay. So that brings a very important point. How long should we store food? Because you can eat food from the fridge and get sick. So how do we know the time frame? The time frame.
So for the time frame, I usually say it depends on all refrigerators have actually 2 compartments, which is the freezer and the fridge compartment. If it's for the freezer, that can last, I don't know, it can last longer because it's actually frozen. But the major compartment is usually the fridge compartment. So if, let's say, if it's food you've cooked, I usually tell people like between 3 to 5 days. But if it's food you've not cooked, and again, depending on the refrigerator you have, I'd go with between 7 to 10 days. After those days, I mean, it's also a health hazard to you and also to anyone else who will consume it.
Okay. So now, most people going into a shop to buy a refrigerator, I think most people would want what they're looking for would be size and things like that in this, you know, the newest one. But what should we be looking for ideally when we're going out to buy a refrigerator?
So I would say if you're in the market to buy a refrigerator, most of the points to look out for would be, one will be on the capacity, and again, like I mentioned, we are currently running the survey, so you can get the survey link on all of LG's platform, that's Facebook, Instagram, to help us get also the customer feedback. But if you're in the market for a refrigerator, so one, usually check on the capacity, and then also check on the energy saving, and that's most likely on the compressor part, because if I ask you, like, from all the appliances you have in your house, there's only one appliance that's always on power 24/7. And that is definitely the refrigerator.
Right.
So you have also to consider on the amount of energy this refrigerator will use, and then also factors involving around freshness, because that's the main aim of a refrigerator. So how can I keep my foods fresher for longer?
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. That's all the time we have.
It's okay.
We have been talking to William Kamore, who is the content manager at LG. We have been talking on matters surrounding food waste reduction.